So I guess from there I kind of just started spiraling because I couldn't fall asleep, and I was so scared to fall asleep at the same time, because it's like, what if I don't wake up? And I just remember like going out into the little living room area because I didn't want to wake up my roommate, and like calling my parents and freaking out, and they were just like, okay, you're having a panic attack. What's up, bougie bosses? It's your girl, Kayla Simmons, and today I'm going to be talking about mental health. And this is the first installment of our Let's Talk About College series, all right? So let's just jump right in. So, as you guys may know, I just recently graduated from college. I went to the University of South Carolina Upstate, and I majored in business administration with a concentration in marketing and a minor in mass media. So I've done this series on the blog, but at the time that I was writing I was still in school. Even though it was towards the end of my college career, I was still in school taking classes. I hadn't officially finished yet. So I thought that it'd be interesting all these months later to kind of come back and just provide a different perspective, because even since then a lot has changed. So I wanted to come and do this for all of you guys who are still in college trying to navigate your way, all the future college students who are nervous and looking for some guidance. I know a lot of times people come at the academic side when it comes to college, but I wanted to kind of come from the self-development standpoint. You guys know that's my thing, so this is why I wanted to do that. Now, just giving you guys some perspective, I want to take it all the way back to freshman year. So when I started freshman year, I came into college. I had always been mature, I'd always been mature, but I was a bit close minded in a lot of ways. And I think that just had a lot to do with where I came from, like my upbringing, not necessarily like my family per se, but just like where I grew up. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm still living here currently. And, anyone who knows anything about the South, especially places like South Carolina, it's a very just closed minded thing overall. And so I just kind of went in like I was smart academically. I've never had a problem there. I don't know if I'm sure I've kind of mentioned that before. I've definitely mentioned it on the blog. Like, I've always been pretty smart, so that wasn't really my issue. But in terms of my emotional intelligence, which I will really dive into next week, I just I wasn't there, y'all. I was pretty naive in that I wanted everyone around me to be like me. So when I moved into the college dorms and I met my roommates who were both so different than me, I definitely started spiraling. Like, I felt like I was having a bit of an identity crisis, which is so normal. Like, every college student, and I'm a firm believer in this, they experience some sort of identity crisis when they go away to school, which makes sense because in a way it kind of is like you are coming into your own for the first time in your life, right? So it's natural. Like, you are identifying who you are as a person and not like as a child, but growing into an adult and becoming an adult. So naturally you're gonna have some sort of crisis. And so I kind of started to spiral. I felt really lonely, and it was just a really rough time, right? But then I want to say around maybe towards the mid to end September of that year. Yeah. So there was this event that they did every year. The town that I went to school in is Spartanburg. It's a public school. Like, yeah, anyone who's from that area, they know what I'm talking about. They do this thing where they have this like is hosted by this organization called College Town, because contrary to popular belief, Spartanburg actually has about 7 or 8 colleges in the area. And so they do this event. It's leaving my mind what the event is called. I'll look it up when I'm done and I'll pop it up here. But they do this event every year in September, where they like have all the colleges come out and come downtown to this like local area. It's really cool and stuff. And they have a DJ and they do like all this music, and it's kind of like a little college festival, so to speak, or something like that. And so I'd heard about it, but I didn't really have anyone to go with per se. And so at the time I had been in class with one of my friends. Well, she wasn't my friend yet, but with one of my classmates, and you always got those classmates that like y'all cool for real, like they your bestie in the classroom, you know what I'm saying? And so we had become that, and I actually, surprisingly, because I wasn't shy, but I was definitely more reserved back then, so I actually like spoke up and asked if she was planning on going and what her plans were, and she was like, yeah, actually I am, me and my other friend were going, and she was, asked if I wanted to come. And so this was like my first, I had done stuff like the first week of college, which, note, for most colleges, I'm sure it may be a little different this year just because of everything else going on. But in normal days, that sounds like it's like 20 years ago. But normally when freshmen go away to school, like they have this whole like set of events that they do the whole week to kind of get them, accustomed to like campus life and all that other stuff like that. So I'd been to a few different things, but honestly, most of those events are so awkward. Like, I'm not saying that to off put y'all, but it's just everybody's awkward, you know what I mean? Like, because everybody's all nervous and stuff, and it's just weird. So this was the first like legit college event that I went to that I felt was like legit, And so I ended up going out with that. And so she actually became my first college friend. Her name is Catherine. I call her Kat, and we still are close friends to this day, right? So I also became friends with her friend, and I was, feeling really good. I finally started meeting people, and I had at least somebody. And so, let me also mention here, remember I mentioned my best friend Amber in my Let's Talk About Friendship series. I also met her around that time as well. We didn't get as close like during that time, but I also met her. So it was a good time in terms of meeting people, right? So you would think that I'm making these friends, that the spiral that I was having, the mental battle that I was having, it would improve, right? Negative. It seems like when one area of my life was improving, another area started deteriorating. So my actual physical health started going south as I was making more friends. And this is something that a lot of people don't really talk about enough when it comes to college. The physical toll that it takes on college students when they go away to school, people don't really talk about enough. And I'm not just talking about freshman 15 or anything like that. I'm talking about like some serious health stuff. Like, I know for one, a lot of us battle insomnia. And I think you see jokes about it on Twitter and people like laugh about it, but it really is a big issue because if you're not getting sleep, then like that can throw off your whole like balance of your body, or I don't know the official term for it, but it'll throw your entire body off if you're not getting sleep, and it can lead to even more health issues. And so I was averaging maybe like 2 to 3 hours of sleep every night, and it was rough. Like, I even was having panic attacks which scared me because I never had that happen to me before. I remember one time I just could not fall asleep for the life of me. I mean, y'all, I tried everything in the book. I tried reading Bible scriptures. I tried counting sheep. I tried I would just lay there in the darkness, and I couldn't do it. And one night I was freaking out because that's another thing. I feel like you're lying if you say you haven't at least once in your college career overslept, right? And so I was like, okay, it's like, I think at that point it was already like 5 or 6 something in the morning, and it was like, okay, I have to get up at 8 because to go to class. And it wasn't like this was just any class. Like, I think we had like a test that day, and I was just like, I can't miss this. And so I guess from there I kind of just started spiraling because I couldn't fall asleep, and I was so scared to fall asleep at the same time because it's like, what if I don't wake up? And I just remember like going out into the little living room area because I didn't want to wake up my roommate, and like calling my parents and freaking out. And they were just like, okay, you're having a panic attack, and like just calm down. And they kind of like talked me through it and stuff. So that's the type of, I'm not saying that to scare you, but I'm just saying that to give you an honest perspective of what it can really be like and the effect that it can really have on your body. Like, I had never, and I've been through some crazy things, I had never had that happen to me before. And so it was a really big problem. And honestly, like, looking back, I don't know how I got through that. I mean, y'all, like another example, like I was be so stressed, and a lot of it had to do with the insomnia. Like I would scratch my hair and I would have hair balls come out, like my hair was falling out, which a lot of people know that is a major sign of like being super stressed and stuff. Like it was just a rough time. I also should probably mention during that second semester, like the beginning of my second semester, my parents also separated, so that may have had something to do with it as well. But I don't know. Like I mean, not saying that it didn't have a lot to do with that, but I feel like it was more so at the time, just like the college life and being adjusted and trying to just kind of navigate and just feeling that anxiety, I guess. So yeah, it was pretty rough, and I honestly don't really know how I got through that. I wish I could tell you guys that it's, I don't know. I wish I could tell you guys that, give you some one for all answer, but honestly, I would be lying if I tried to do that. I feel like it's just growing pains, honestly. Yeah, I feel like it's just kind of growing pains that you just have to go through to kind of figure out your placement and like the type of person that you are. Because even though it was such a stressful time and I felt really lonely a lot of the time, I wouldn't trade that time back because I learned so much about myself. And so it's a rough time, but it's a very much needed time. And let me just say, I'm not saying that this is how it's going to be for you. Like, you may have a way better experience. So please don't listen to this and get scared. You guys know I have to be transparent with you guys. And so that's just the reality for a lot of people. But that does not have to be your reality. Like, you could have a way better experience. I'm just talking about mine and just letting people know who do experience that you're not by yourself, because a lot of us do feel like we're by ourselves, and really most if not all of us are experiencing that to some degree. So that's why I wanted to not only share that, but just make this whole series entirely so you guys know you're not alone. So yeah, it's growing pains and all that good stuff. And just kind of elaborating on that more, I feel like in terms of experiencing those growing pains, like I said before, like you are on your own for the first time. Like, man, I will never forget that time when my parents, and I was cool. Like up until leaving for college, I wasn't really nervous because, like I said, I kind of just like I had the academic thing down. I was book smart. I'm very book smart, and so I just wasn't worried about it, and that's really the only thing I was thinking about. And so I wasn't really nervous. And then I was standing on the steps of my dorm building and watching them walk away, and I was like, like, oh, basically like the rest of my life is in my hands. And when you have that realization, it's such a scary thing. Like, wow, everything that happens from here on out, it's on me. And that's a scary feeling to have. I'll say it now, and I'm going to continue to say it throughout the remainder of this series. I went in, like I said, just only thinking about the academics and, thinking that I had that down packed, and so college would be not necessarily a breeze, but I didn't think I'd have any trouble. But y'all, like, college is kind of like 20/80. And it's not like the cliche 20/80 rule that you guys hear, but when I say 20/80, I mean only like 20% of the time you're like in classes and doing like academic stuff for most of us. The other 80% is actually figuring out how to survive. And so that's the most, like, that whole self-discovery part and like trying to navigate through life, like that's really most of what college is. If I'm being honest, that's really most of what college is. And I don't think a lot of people going into college really know that. And so I was like, let me put these people on the game, because that's really how it goes. I also do want to make a note that in terms of my mental health, even though I did struggle a bit, it did kind of also improve, or that's kind of contradictory. I don't want to say it improved, but it was, I'd say towards the very end of the school year, it started to improve because I started joining more organizations, And obviously, like when you're part of group orgs or whatever you want to call it, you just naturally feel more included in stuff. And so it just makes you feel a little bit more confident putting yourself out there because it's like you know more people. And I'm not saying that to say like you should use group organizations to validate yourself, because you know you're enough on your own. But definitely getting out there gave me a lot more confidence. And when you're confident on the outside, it really starts to help on the inside, even if you're faking it a little bit on the outside. Like, honestly, I faked it till I made it for a little bit, honestly, if I'm being quite frank. Like I said before, I wasn't shy, but I was a bit more reserved. And so in joining group organizations, it was a lot less intimidating to just like, I don't know, walking up to random people and starting conversations. And before I knew it, it was like I could walk by a group of people and know at least one person. You know, like I wasn't like popular or anything, but I could know at least one person if I walked by a group of people. And that does a lot for your confidence. It just makes you feel a lot more secure and all that good stuff. And then it got to a point where I was actually like talking to random people. Like I shocked myself, y'all, so much. Like I would start random conversations with random people, you know, just about things, or like compliment them or ask a question. And I felt so like liberated, like, oh my God, like look at me, you know, prospering and being social and stuff. And so that was a really cool thing to experience. And so now like we're in sophomore year, right? And so this is like I should have said this before I said all of that, but like when I'm talking about going into coming out of freshman year and going into sophomore year, that's when a lot of the org stuff, like I started joining a lot of organizations throughout that time. So sophomore year, my mental health was in a pretty decent place for the most part because of all the organizations. I should have said that before, but yeah, like it was in a pretty good place. Like I said, I started prospering more. I became a lot more confident. Even learned how to handle confrontation. If you want to know about that, I'll link that story time up here. But yeah, like it was a pretty decent time. And then we got to the summer before junior year. So essentially how everything went down was I was wanting to transfer to another university after my sophomore year of college, right? And so this was originally my number one choice. Like I applied to the school when I was in high school to go, and I got in, but they were just extremely expensive, and we just couldn't swing it. So I literally chose upstate, like, I don't know, like in April. So it was a very last minute decision. Like they weren't even on my radar, honestly. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just go the first 2 years to upstate, and then I'll transfer to this school to finish out my last 2 years, right? And so that's what I did. Well, that's not what I did, but I applied again. I got accepted again, and they were a little cheaper this time. And so we were just going to see like, hey, can we make it work? But then there was I don't know, I guess something was going on with their like financial aid people, because they were just like not getting back to us. And so we kind of just had to say like, okay, I guess we're just going to do upstate now. But the thing was, I didn't apply for housing during my sophomore year, because, you know, you have to apply if you're coming back on campus. You have to apply for housing for the next year, like in the spring semester, before you come back that fall, if that makes sense. And so I didn't apply in the spring of my sophomore year because I didn't think that I'd be coming back. And so then when we made the decision that we were going to come back, then I called in the summer to see if they still had any spots available, and they told me they did. But then when I called back a little while later, they said they didn't have any spots. And so I was like freaking out, because I lived an hour and a half away from the school, didn't have a car. So I'm just like, I can't, like, what am I going to do? And so like, then there was mention of like sitting the semester out. And I was just like freaking out, of course, about that. Cause I'm just like, what? Like, no, like I can't like sit a semester out. And it was just, obviously I was going through it like I was really going through it, obviously mentally, because I'm just like, I have nowhere to go. And so Fortunately, a friend of mine who she was one of my first roommates my freshman year, she had her own apartment. And so I went in and moved with her, and I started working with her as well. And so, I mean, it felt good to be independent and pay my own bills and stuff like that and have that freedom of being in an off-campus apartment. But my mental health wasn't in the best state because I was working so much. Like, we would literally go straight from school to work, and we were required, this was when I was a waitress, we were required to work every Friday and Saturday, and in addition to the other days during the week. And so I was making good money and I had independence, but I was so unhappy because I had to stop all those other organizations because like I couldn't make any of the meetings or any of the performances. I was only able to stay active in one organization, and that's because it was at the business school, and so I could still make some of the meetings. So just for clarification purposes, at my alma mater, which it feels weird to say that, but at my alma mater, the business school was not with the rest of the campus. Like, the business school was in downtown Spartanburg, and then the rest of the campus was not like, it wasn't that far away. It was only like 15 minutes away, but for some reason they put the business school downtown, and so I was away from all the other like stuff on campus and activities and such like that. So yeah, I obviously, like I said, a big reason why my mental health started improving was because I joined the organization. So naturally, when I couldn't be active like I wanted to anymore, it started deteriorating, right? And so, and honestly, also the workplace, it was extremely toxic. Like, it was just a lot of drama. A lot of the people there, like, they just, like, it was just toxic. It was toxic, and I was just, I don't know, like, there were happy moments. I'm not going to say it was all bad. And, me and she's following me saying her name. Me and Haley, like, we had, a lot of good times and stuff like that. But overall, I just was unhappy. And so that was kind of a rough thing. But I only had to stay off campus for that semester. They were just like, there's just not any room this semester, but you can apply again to come back on in the spring. And so that's what I did. And so it started improving again when I moved back on campus in the spring of my junior year, because I was able to be active again and do all the things. And I was still working at the restaurant, but I wasn't working there as much because my class load had also picked up during this time. Because that was also, I should probably mention this because it's going to make sense in a few minutes, that my class load had picked up. And so, yeah, wait a minute, what am I saying? Yeah, my class load picked up because I decided to add my mass media minor to my roster. And so in order to like get in all the credits that I needed, I had to take like 18 credit hours. AKA like six classes. And for my university, the average is like four to five is full time, and I was taking 6. So yeah, so that was kind of how that happened. Junior year, my mental health improved because I was able. Well, the spring of my junior year, my mental health improved because I was able to move back on campus, get more involved, and just be surrounded by, I guess, more positive influences. I wasn't at work as much, and so I just felt a lot better. I was coming into my own a lot, and my new roommates were pretty cool too. Like, me and Haley, of course, we still saw each other all the time because we still work together and stuff, but, it was nice to have like cool rooms because, as you guys, from previous story times, like, I didn't always have the best roommate situation. And so, yeah, like, it was pretty cool then. And so then, now we're at senior year. I feel like this is going to be a long video, but I don't know. I guess it's a cute little story time. So senior year, we get to senior year, and man, such a whirlwind. So I want to say about, actually maybe like a week or two before I left for senior year, I had a rough realization. I had to come to terms with a trauma from my past that I'd kind of been, I guess, avoiding. So that kind of had a big effect on me. That took a big hit on me. Honestly, I mean, I guess I can just say it. I came to terms with being molested when I was younger. I don't know, like it's not that I necessarily like downplayed it, but I guess I don't know. It's a weird way to describe it. I kind of, that memory was kind of fuzzy, even though it was like 13, 14 at the time. I guess subconsciously I pushed it to the back of my mind. And when I would think about it over the years, I wouldn't think that, which is common, that I found out after researching. That's common for victims, which I don't want to refer to myself as a victim, but that's common for people who are survivors of that to think that way. And so, yeah, that was a rough time coming to terms with that all these years later, and like my memory still being fuzzy and it just being a really weird time. And so that definitely kind of, my mental health was in a weird space. And then about a month after school started, my grandmother died unexpectedly. She'd had some health issues, but she'd conquered a lot of them. You know, she'd beat cancer twice. She'd survived so many other things. And so, yeah, there were some issues, but she'd been through so much worse that no one really thought anything would happen. Like, she didn't have anything alarming going on at the time. And so it just caught everyone off guard. And, you know, that's my heart right there. Like, you know, I'm her oldest grand. This is my paternal grandmother, my dad's mom. And of course that broke my heart. And that kind of just, I don't know, I kind of became numb. I'm pretty sure my camera cut off because this is the longest video I'm pretty sure I filmed. But yeah, like I was saying, to be honest, it still is. I'm filming this video in August. This won't be out until October, but it'll be a year in September. And honestly, it still kind of hasn't really hit me that she's gone, which is weird. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like, it still is kind of like hard to believe. Yeah. So now I kind of numbed myself during that time, just because I had so much going on. Like, okay, so listen, remember how I said earlier where when you get to senior year, it's like the 20/80 and like the 20% is the academic stuff and then the 80 is just like the life stuff. Yeah, that 20% was kicking my butt. So I was also taking 18 credit hours in the fall of my senior year. And who these teachers were assigned and stuff, like they had nothing else to do. Like, it was insane. Like, y'all, I kid you not, it was insane the amount of work that we had to do. Like, I was taking 6 classes and I had projects and presentations in every single one of them. Like, and I wasn't working as a waitress anymore, but by then I was working as an assistant, like, to the directors of student life in the housing office. And then I was also working on the newspaper. I wasn't the editor yet, the arts and culture editor yet, but I was working as a business and fashion journalist on the newspaper. So I had 2 jobs. And then, you know, all those extracurriculars, like, yeah, they helped my mental health, but now they were kind of weighing me down because most of them I had like some sort of executive position on, one of which I was president. And so like a lot was going on at the time. And so I literally had so much work to do. Like, I remember the day of my grandmother's funeral having to correspond with someone back on campus via email about an upcoming event because no one else would do it. And like, we are literally about to get into the family car to go to the funeral, and I'm having to email back and forth with these people. Like, that's just an idea of how much I had on my plate. Like, it was crazy. And so I wouldn't say my mental health was necessarily, well, it was bad. It was bad because I was avoiding a lot because I just had so much to do. And so that was the time. But, you know, I got through it. I managed through it. And then we get to spring. It's a lot less stressful. You know, I don't have as much going on. My class load isn't as intense. And so I'm thinking, you know what? Okay, it's my senior year. Because when I was a senior in high school, it just flew by. And I was in IB, which is the International Baccalaureate program. For those that don't know, it's basically like AP on steroids. If you want to look it up, it's a really intense program, which is honestly why most of college was a breeze for me and why I wasn't really worried academically. But yeah, so it was a lot less intense during my last semester of college, and I made the decision because when I was in high school, I didn't really live in the moment. And I kind of just, I don't know, I kind of just looked up and then I graduated. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to make the conscious decision. Like, I'm going to live in the moment. I'm going to enjoy this time before I graduate. You know, this, I don't know if I'm ever coming back to school. So I'm going to take this in and really just live in the moment. And then, of course, this pandemic starts spiraling. And then in a matter of a week, it went from, okay, you guys are gonna, because what happened was they started the shutdown like towards the end of our spring break. And so it went from, okay, you guys are just gonna get an extra 2 weeks and come back at the beginning of next month, because it was like March 15th. So come back at the beginning of April to finish the semester out, and we'll just do these 2 weeks virtually. To by that Thursday on the 19th, they were like, okay, we're doing the rest of the semester virtually. And by default, like the graduation thing, you know, that kind of crushed me. But at the same time, you know, this was when everything was first happening. So they were just like, we're just going to like postpone it or something and we'll just keep you updated. But regardless, it was still kind of like, even if we have the graduation, like I won't get to, like there's so many people I won't get to say goodbye to because I made so many connections throughout the years. And it's just like, I know even if we have graduation, I won't be able to see everyone and like get to experience being in the classroom and having that moment and stuff. And so, and there were like with the organizations, there were a lot of events that we had planned and things we wanted to do that we never got the chance to do. And so it was just, obviously that took a really big hit. And I wrote about that on the blog. And honestly, at the time that I wrote about it, I was still kind of in a really bad place because when I was doing this, I was writing that in April when everything was still kind of sort of fresh. And so it was a really rough time. So yeah, it was a really rough time. And honestly, my mental health wasn't in the best space. I was kind of depressed and, well, I guess I can just, I don't know, I'm transparent with you guys. I was also going through a breakup at the moment. And so that also, you know, kind of bummed me out. And so I was just kind of in a bad space. And also my health started to really act up again. I'd been having some health issues previously, like that kind of really started flaring up in the fall of my senior year, but now like it was really bad. Like I wasn't in a good space at all. And I'm not saying I'm in the best space now, but I'm a lot better than I was. And so I was having to go to all these doctor's appointments and like they couldn't really figure out what was wrong or why my body was reacting in certain ways to stuff. And like it was a rough time, y'all. And so it kind of got a flashback to like freshman year when I was having all that stuff, but except this time it was a little bit more intense. So it was a little rougher. I went through a bit of a depression, to be honest, but I came out of it. I'll dive into how I kind of got through all of that later on in this series. But I just wanted to start it off just mainly talking about my mental health. Next week, I'll talk about emotional intelligence and especially in the last one, like I'll really dive into more so how I got through all of that towards the end. But I just wanted to start it off this way and just let you guys know that when it comes to your mental health in college, it is a crazy emotional roller coaster, a crazy mental roller coaster, but just do your best to ride that wave in one piece, you know, show yourself grace, because I was extremely hard on myself for things that were out of my control. And listen, there's only so much you can do. So just show yourself grace. Just do your best to stay in one piece. Just try to put yourself out there. Do things that make you happy. Take up some hobbies or do things that you already like to do that you maybe have neglected for a while. Just do your best to make a positive narrative no matter what the actual situation looks like. Just take everything as a lesson learned, whether it's good or bad, because at the end of the day, all of it will make you a more well-rounded individual. And that's it, and that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this first installment of the Let's Talk About College series. Let me know down below, for those who have been to college, let me know your experience with mental health throughout college. And for those who have any questions, comment them down below. Let me know what you think. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you're not already. Also, make sure to click the bell next to it to be notified whenever I upload. I love you so much, bougie bosses, and I will see you next time. Bye.